Broadcasted live.
How do we know when we're live? How will we see it? It's already. It's saying live 10 minutes. I can see live.
We're live.
Are we live?
I think so. It says live in the top corner.
It says you are in the show. Everyone can see and hear you. Wow. Okay then.
Hey.
Hello everybody. Are we live? We're live. Oh my God. Okay. Hello everyone. Hello everyone. My name is Funmi Victor-Okigbo and this is Chrissie Beck. And she's my friend and colleague all the way from the UK. I'm so excited to have her here. And wherever you are, just give her what do they call it? Applause. A round of applause for Chrissie. So happy to have you here, Chrissie.
Oh, it's great to be here. I've been wanting to do something like this with you for a while, Funmi. So thank you so much for me.
Yep. How's the weather? We can't start without talking about the weather. So
it's cold.
British weather.
It's so cold. It is properly winter right now. It's windy. It gets dark at like 4 o'clock in the evening.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, most of my life is just complete darkness. But yeah, it's all good though. You know, things are looking up. After Christmas, I had a nice break, and then I felt like I had a nice kind of fresh look on my January, and now February, the year seems to be running away from me, but yeah, it's all good. And how are things for you?
Great. Weather is warm here, and the rains have started, but it's really hot generally. But in terms of the events landscape, but before we even go into it, Chrissie, can you tell everybody we're just chatting like nobody else exists? Forgive us, everyone. We haven't caught up in a while. So, Chrissie, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the things you've done so far?
Yeah, of course.
I'm sure everybody wants to know more about you.
Yeah, of course. So I worked in the events landscape for 18 years. So I started out working in a few suppliers in logistics and staffing and client services. And then I decided to move into a more kind of creative role. So I went agency side, and I was working as kind of project manager or, you know, creative production for a number of different brands, you know, like Google, Nissan, Disney, Lindt Chocolate, mostly kind of corporate events, quite big scale, you know, big budgets, big creative. And then I did that for about 10 years and wanted to get more of experience to know what it was like to be a client. So I went in-house. I worked for an airline. So I worked for Virgin Atlantic for about 3 years, delivering all of their international events, you know, side by side with Richard Branson. And then after that, I went to Shell. And in-house at Shell, you know, big budgets, big complicated projects internationally, navigating lots of different stakeholders. And then for the last maybe 6 years of my career, I've been considering sustainability in what I've been doing. You know, sustainability is a kind of hot topic for what's going on in the events landscape, right? In the UK and parts of Europe and in the US especially. I've been trying really hard to think about sustainability and apply it to what I've been doing, but it's often met with quite a lot of pushback, or, you know, it's quite low down people's priority list. And I really am passionate about it. So I decided to leave my corporate role and to start a consultancy where I help businesses, could be an agency, could be a corporate events team. I advise them on how they can be more sustainable when they're delivering events. My business name is Worlds Better. And now, instead of delivering for the last 9 months, I simply consult on sustainable practices for event professionals. But, you know, behind me, I've got 18 years of delivery experience doing all sorts of, you know, large scale events all over the world.
You have been everywhere. You've done a lot of things. Oh my God. You're the best person to have here. So, because for me, I've always believed in, even in the academy, and I've always talked about working with global brands and having global standards with everything we do. I don't believe that everything should be localized to say, oh, we're the best at what we do by the Nigerian standard. No, it's global. You know, if you do an event in Nigeria, you should be able to execute that level, that same standard anywhere in the world. And that's why I'm particularly excited to have you here, because we're not just talking about Nigerian events, we're talking about what is the standard all around the world. So welcome, and we're so happy to have you here, right?
Thank you.
Yes. So I wanted to ask you if you got to hang out with Richard Branson, but I guess you'll give me that just later. And what was he like?
Oh, I can answer that pretty quickly.
All right, tell us.
He's great. He's very smart, as you can imagine. You know, it's all kind of business, all go. He'll say hello, and then he's like, "What do you want me to do?" And he'll just ask you to tell him what to do, and you just tell him, and he'll crack on and do it. But
he's a rock star entrepreneur. I love him. Absolutely love him. So we had asked some of our students and our viewers to send in some questions, and they have a few questions. This is just going to be a Q&A, just answer questions. We'll have a good time, nothing serious, you know, and we'll take it from there. So our first question is, do you have any tips on how to stay organized as a corporate events manager, especially when you have to plan multiple events at the same time?
That's a good question.
Yes.
I would say my top tip would be, I always use a project plan. So, you know, a spreadsheet where I would map out what needs to happen on my projects, either day by day, week by week, month by month, depending on the scale of the project and how much time you have. I live by those project plans. And if I've got multiple projects on the go, I would make sure, you know, even at the beginning of every day, I look at my project plans, see what deadlines I have coming up, you know, writing to-do lists upon to-do lists. Every day I do a weekly one, and then I do a daily one. And, you know, just making sure that I'm considering what my priorities are for the week, and anything that, you know, anticipating that things are going to come in last minute that might knock other things on my list down my priority list, right? So yeah, I think keeping yourself organized and agile enough to find the time to, you know, jump on anything that might come up, or like problem solve, you know. As an event manager, you really need to be able to do. It does take a bit of time and practicing to get that right. And you know, as an event manager, you kind of have to have that skill of multitasking anyway. You really do. So yeah, I would just say lists. And, you know, project plans, keeping track of everything, and just making sure that you have your priorities right.
What do you think of the apps like Basecamp, Notion? What do you think of those? Because from what you just described, it's more manual, like and which really, the thing is, you have to be able to do it manually. Because that's what you even put into those apps anyway. So, but what do you think of those?
I think they're good. I would say something like Basecamp or Trello, you know, those
Trello
management tools. They're really good if you're navigating a complicated project with multiple people. If you're keeping yourself organized, I think it's up to you, and it's up to you to find a process and a format that works best for you. But I do really appreciate those kind of cross team collaboration tools. I think the one that I've used the most has been Trello. I definitely do recommend as well.
And, you know, speaking of lists, right, I try to, you know, teach my students why more than telling them what to do, because I've tried trying to give them, think it through and give them as many lists as possible, and, you know, even for my team, but it's never enough. Because, you know, like, as you know, events are live and things keep happening all the time. So you have to be able to think through your events and know exactly what you need, because it's not just one size fits all. That's what I've noticed.
Definitely. And what I would say is it does take some experience to learn what every single step you need to go through to plan an event. And sometimes you need to make a mistake to learn a lesson.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you might forget something and then be like, oh my God, okay, I'm never going to forget that again. Or you might miss a thing. And I also think that it takes a bit of experience and practice to learn how to prioritize. Because, you know, you might have a to-do list and you might work your way through that to-do list, but until you get a bit more experience and you've maybe learned from a mistake, you don't know what a priority is until a bit more under your belt and more years of experience under your belt, you know?
Yeah, and you know, the thing is, they say entrepreneurs or leaders should allow their teams fail so they can learn. But this is
Yes.
the thing, when you're working with a client, you're working with a multinational, you're working with a global brand, you're working with a big client, there's no room for failure. So it's like, I don't know how you've been able to navigate that. So it's like, how do you allow your team fail? You know, failing is good for them because it's part of the process. But you also want to protect them from the clients, because if they mess up, it affects you. So how does one do that?
Oh, that's a tough question.
Yeah.
I think, you know, as a team,
Yes.
some of you in the team are likely to make mistakes, but you collaborate and you kind of, as a group, work out how to fix that problem. You know,
Together.
Together,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes.
And, you know, one person might make a mistake and it's like, you know, we're not going to point any fingers here. We're not, there's no judgment here. There's a mistake made, got a problem to solve, let's just solve it. And it could be like, okay, you go out and buy this and this is going to help fix the problem. Or, you know, this person needs to order this bit of print because we've made a spelling mistake on a print piece, or you know, whatever else. It's just about clubbing together to fix the situation. And I don't think, you know, those mistakes, and, you know, it's really important not to point fingers and to blame anyone. Everyone makes mistakes and they're the best way to learn.
And maybe even have checks in place. You know, this doesn't go to the client unless this person is, you know, okayed it for it to go. Maybe that.
Yeah, and
all right.
The most senior person on the team, whoever that might be, that it's also partly their responsibility to check everything and be and you know, make sure that everything has been considered. Yeah, it's a group effort getting those things resolved.
All right. Second question. Thank you so much for that, Chrissie. The second question is, how do you infuse creativity in your events, particularly with routine events where there's little or no room for creativity?
You know what? This is a really interesting question, because especially when you end up corporate side, like in-house, the creativity gets absolutely stripped out of your hands. It's so hard. But I think, how do you infuse creativity? I think that's down to the individual, because I think being a really, really good organized event planner and being creative is such a rare combination of experience.
True.
Right?
Very true. Yes.
I would say I'm not particularly that creative, but, you know, you can give me a mass scale, complicated project, hundreds of stakeholders, and I'll smash it. But like, yeah, but you know, if you haven't got much money and you're trying to be creative, or you work with a brand that has really strict boundaries around what you be creative in, and, you know, what you can do, what you can't do. I mean, Shell is a great example of that. You know, you can't really be particularly creative with a brand like that.
True.
But I would say my recommendation would be, if you've got a brief in front of you and you are trying to be as creative as possible in your response to that brief, speak to colleagues about it. I think the more minds you have trying to think of a creative idea, the better. You know, more minds add creativity, in my opinion. And I would be looking at it from a very different perspective to you. For me, for example, I think you're way, way, way more creative than I could ever be. Ever be. So I think, you know, if I had something where I had to be really creative, I'd probably be like, knock, knock, knock. Funmi, can you help me? And, you know, I'm sure you'd be willing to help. I think it's maybe identifying the people around you and knowing what their superpowers are, and knowing when to pull in people to help you with certain things, maybe.
Yeah. So I think I'll chip into this. I mean, at the beginning, like, yes, you're right. I am a creative and I'm also organized. And at the beginning of my career, I used to want to force the client to be creative. You have to be creative. I
Yeah.
have to infuse creativity into your event. But look, years later, it's not about me, right? If your client wants a boring event, give it to them. When I say boring event,
Mm-hmm.
some clients require an event to go smoothly. That's all they want,
Yeah.
right? People come in, they check in, the lines are not long, you have your projector screen,
Yeah.
people have their dinner, whatever, chop, 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 and it goes. At the end of the day, it's not about you.
Yep.
How do you measure success? The
Yep.
client tells you that, not you.
Yep.
So if the client wants a straightforward event, give it to them and do it well. It's about what they want. But if a client wants creativity and you are not creative, find the team, find the right people.
Yep.
On my team, I have people who are like you, who are just very good with the operational part of things. And
Yep.
I have the guys who are creative, and I bring everybody together to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that's why I started creating my own events, because I felt, you know what, I want more creativity in my life. And I'm like, hey, I'll do the big birthday bash, the unofficial Christmas party, whatever it takes,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But as event planners and managers, we should never forget that it's never about us, it's about the client.
It's about achieving what the client's objective is.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you know, at all points in your planning process, in your development process, in your planning
Yes.
process, in your delivery process,
Mm-hmm.
everything should revert back to that objective. So like
Yeah.
if you've got a problem in your hands, you know, if something's happened, you've got a problem that you're trying to solve, is the solution that we're trying to find still
Yes.
going to achieve the client's objective? Cool, go for it. Is
Yeah.
it not really?
Absolutely.
Are we wasting time and energy on something that's not going to help achieve the objective? Don't
Yeah.
bother. You know,
Absolutely.
every time I'm working on an event, I have the client objective in huge letters on my wall.
Absolutely.
Never forget that, because you can end up going down a rabbit hole, can't you? You know, thinking about things that you could be doing or just trailing off, and you always need to bring yourself back to that objective.
Yep. Because I mean, I had to. So I have this master document that we have in our team where when we get the questions and answers from the clients, it's part of the planning process. Because yes, some years ago we would just talk to the client. The clients will give you a long list of the things they want, and then somebody files it somewhere. You have to keep going back to it.
Yeah,
You have
yeah.
to keep reminding yourself what they said for each particular element.
Yep.
So it's
Yep.
about the clients at the end of the day. Thank you so much. Thank you. This third question, I think you'd like it because it has to do with sustainability. And it says, yes, what is the importance of sustainability and what are particular ways to implement and drive sustainability in the events industry?
Okay, so the importance of sustainability, in my opinion, is the most important thing. I mean, obviously, the second most important thing. The first important thing is the objective you're trying to achieve.
Yes.
But the second thing is sustainability, in my opinion. And when we're talking about sustainability, and I know this is what I talk about day to day, sustainability means creating a better future, and that is through, you know, considering environmental impacts, considering social impacts, and and considering economic impacts. I focus most of my effort on environmental considerations, which is part of, you know, forms part of the triangle of sustainability. But in the future, I predict that people will prioritize environmental sustainability and social sustainability over economic. So people and planet over profit. At the moment, that is not happening. Profit is your highest priority.
Yeah.
And then maybe it's people, and then maybe at the bottom it's the planet, right? But I think time's changing. In the UK, definitely, I'm seeing that more people are prioritising environmental sustainability when they're thinking about their events. the second part of that question was around practical ways to implement sustainable events. There's so many things you can do, and I could talk to you for a whole nother hour about things you can do. What I will suggest is there is a really useful tool called proceed.events. So it's spelled PROSEED.events. So that is a tool that's been developed by a company called Isla, who are an industry body that help event industry professionals apply sustainable practices. On that website, if you scroll down, there's like this kind of framework where it gives you loads of ways you can implement sustainable practices in each area of event delivery. So, loads of recommendations when it comes to energy usage, when it comes to catering, when it comes to transport, when it comes to production and graphics. I'll share the link, or if anyone,
please, proceed dot what?
Let me, I think I can send it in, I can put it into a private chat here, and then someone can share it. Let me
Okay. So my team should check on that and share it with everyone so they can have a look. If you're just joining us, hello, this is Chrissie and this is Evio. We've been here for the past 20-something minutes talking all about events. Please share this with your friends, let them join in, and let's see how much we can learn today. I've learned so much so far. So yeah. And I hear some people are here. Kumi, hi. Kumi is one of my alumni. And I don't know who else is here, but hello to everyone.
Hi. We do have a good question in the chat, actually, that I can see. Do you think sustainable options are price competitive? That's a very good question. And it really depends. So there are so many things you can do to swap out what you've normally produced with a sustainable option. More often than not, sustainable materials especially are slightly more expensive, but there are things that you can do that reduce your costs in other areas. In the UK at the moment, there is a huge trend in plant-based catering. So it's actually quite easy for you to go, do you know what, for my event, I am only going to serve plant-based meals. So no beef, no lamb, no white meat, no seafood, nothing like that, all plant-based, which will reduce your carbon impact significantly. That proceed.events website that will pop into the chat at some point soon gives you
proceed.events.
Yes, proceed.events, but it's proceed with a S, S-E-E.
Okay, proceed.events. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, really, really helpful website. But often it really depends on what you're going to swap out. If it's materials that at the moment they're a little bit more expensive, but if it's things like catering, or if you're going to produce print that is on recycled or recyclable material, that sort of thing, can end up a little bit cheaper. But yeah, that's a big question, and we could do a whole other session on that, Funmi, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
that's sustainability all day.
It's something we need to talk about in Nigeria, because right now I don't even think it's something that's being talked about enough here. Right now we're still trying to deal with service providers delivering on time and stuff like that. Third world problems. But I must say that we have done amazingly well in Nigeria when it comes to events. I mean, when I first started, it was so much more difficult. We're not as creative, but now the creativity is on another level. Every day I'm on Instagram and I'm seeing things. I'm like, wow, how did they do that? And a lot of my alumni are doing me proud. They're like doing amazing work. So yeah, but I'm hoping that we will bring you back to talk about sustainability, because it's something we need to start talking about so that we're one step ahead,
And that can even be, really basic considerations. And when I say basic, it's because some of the things that I'm discussing with some of my clients feel quite futuristic and innovative. And if it's like, I tell you what basic things can we do? What simple swaps can we do that we know we have resources to be able to deliver in Nigeria? Like I can help you devise something like that, where we give your alumni and your students some advice on what they could be doing.
All right. So if you guys want Chrissie to come back to talk about sustainability, I want you guys to say something in the chat, in the comments, so we know. If we get enough, then she'll come back soon, okay?
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. So the next question is, what advice do you have for event managers who feel burnt out? That's all of us.
Yeah,
that is every one of us.
Oh, gosh.
What advice do you have?
Oh, what advice? So when I started out my career, I had way more energy, back in my early 20s, right? I had way more energy and doing those, 18-hour days and, really long day installs, live event, and then, removals. I could do them, no problem. And as I'm getting older, I'm now realizing my energy levels are dropping. But also, I do look back on those years when I first started out and how many hours I was working. Yes, getting burnt out because I was quite young, but I could have burnt out quite easily. So my advice would be, you know your body and you know how much work you're capable of doing. Like, draw quite firm boundaries with yourself. So only work, maximum 10 hours a day, 8 hours max. Know where your boundaries are and try and work within those boundaries. I now just try really hard to listen to my body. If I'm losing my attention when I'm in the middle of a working day, I'll just stand up and I'll go for a walk. I'll go down to the beach or just, walk around the park. Or if I start doing a piece of work on something where I feel absolutely uninspired, I'll just be like,
sometimes.
Yeah, it happens. You don't want to force yourself to do a piece of work because you're not going to do that well. You're just going to do it quick because you want to get it done. I find at different times of the day, I work better on certain types of work. So yeah, listen to your body. You'll get used to knowing what way you work best, whether it's doing really budget work in the morning and creative work in the afternoon, or presentations in the morning and then networking in the afternoon, however you work best. And I can't express this enough. It took me a really long time to work out that eating well, exercising regularly, and drinking plenty of water,
and going to the spa once in a while.
Yeah, those things where you're like, I know I should do that, eating well especially. And, I love a glass of wine as well. So making sure I don't have too much wine. And, just looking after your physical health as well as your mental health. Those come hand in hand. And absolutely listen to your body.
Yeah, I think for me is, yes, burnt out is one thing, but how do we avoid burnout? So I'm always thinking of how do I not get there? So and I think one of the things that we can learn as event professionals is collaborate a bit.
Or collaborate, I think the answer to Funmi just said, but she's cut out. I think
I've disappeared. Yeah, so collaborate a bit more. Find out the things you love to do and the things you don't necessarily like. Find people on your team who can do it. Work with freelancers, right? Take a break sometimes, and so sometimes tell the clients, because clients want stuff now, immediately, right? So if you know it's going to take you a week, if you know it's going to take you 3 days, tell the clients 7 days to give you that time. And if you deliver earlier, that's fine, because it's very easy to get burnt out. The client, everybody wants their project to be important. They want what they want now.
Yes.
And if you break down, you break down. They'll look for the next event professionals. They don't care.
Yeah.
So you really have to take care of yourself.
Take care of yourself and resource your projects properly so that you aren't working every hour under the sun. Like you said, hiring enough freelancers to support you if that's you in your business, or when you're building that budget, don't come in too low on cost,
Yep.
you end up having to do too much yourself, or
Absolutely.
yeah.
So I'll say try as much as possible to avoid burnout, but if you're burnt out, take time off.
Yes.
Or else you're not going to be useful to the client or yourself.
No.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've had people from me where you're like burnt out, and towards the where you get to that breaking point, I look back on emails that I've sent and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, that isn't even English. Like, no point in me having even worked for that day.
Then you send a disclaimer to the client, that wasn't me.
Yeah, sorry.
My dog typed that email.
Yes, I don't want to get to that point for sure.
Yeah, fantastic. Oh, this is so much fun. All right, what is the best career advice you have ever received?
I would say, so I had a piece of advice from a female leader in the UK once, who said, you should always be thinking about what job you want after your next one, which blew my mind. I was like, is that how strategic people are? Normally I'm thinking about what I'm doing now. I'm not thinking about my next job, nor am I thinking about the one I want after that. And that kind of made me take a couple of steps back and go, oh, okay, well, what do I want to do 2 jobs after this? It was a question that really made me think strategically about my career, and go, okay, well, that does make sense, because if I want, the job that I'm thinking of, I need to start thinking about any training that I want to do at this point now, or what experience that I want to build up to be able to
take. Amazing. Yes.
Yeah, she's incredible. And
so prepare for the kind of job you'd like to take on next. And if you don't have what it takes, get the training, get the whatever you need to do to do that. So I really like that.
Yeah,
that has become my best career advice now. You and me both.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'll happily introduce you to the lady that gave me that advice. She's amazing.
Fantastic. Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great. That's amazing. Yeah. What makes an event unique? I guess we'll have to ask the clients that. That's the next question. But in your opinion, what's that thing that does it for you?
I would say, if unique means like memorable and something different, and like something a bit special, and your attendees went to it and they tell all their friends about it, I would say capturing who that audience is and how to communicate with them is what makes an event really unique and special.
Absolutely.
Because how many events you get to where you go to them and you're like, okay, this is the same stuff,
Absolutely.
I've got an agenda, I'm going to go to these sessions. They don't really know how to talk to you or how to make it unique for you. So I would say understanding how to speak to your audience very well is rare.
Yeah, because I always say, your guests get dressed, they drive through traffic, in some cases in Lagos, 3-4 hours of traffic. You don't want to waste their time. Yeah, they come there and you have to give them something worth their while, something memorable. Have some respect for your clients and your guests, and also as event planners and managers, it's also it's our responsibility to also sometimes educate the clients. Because sometimes, I remember there was a client I worked for some years ago, and they were like, oh, don't include fish in the menu. I don't like fish. And I'm like, surely out of the 300 people coming for this event, some of them like fish. And she was like, oh, that's true. I'm like, it's not about you. You're the client, but you have to consider your guests. So sometimes we have to chip in and help. Yeah.
And I guess for the kind of events that you do, that objective will change, because it could be a corporate client where the objective is probably communicating something out to all of those attendees. But if it was, a birthday or a wedding, then them having that control over the menu, it's up to them. It's their event, you do what they want. But yeah, being able to manage your client in a way and go, this kind of corporate event, it doesn't really matter what you individually like. You need to know how to speak and how to engage with your audience in a way that you enjoy and remember.
Yeah. I always ask, what is the call to action? How would you like them to feel? What would you like them to do after the event? Because that's, if you don't think about those things, then you're just wasting your money.
Absolutely.
Yes. So I have a new question from Damilola.
Okay.
Damilola says, some clients are very draining, especially when they've paid for service. Please, how do you properly price yourself?
Well, I would say if you've got a particularly draining client, then price yourself higher.
Yeah.
And, that might push you out of the running to potentially win that work. But if you know that they're going to be draining and harder work and take you more time to manage, then that, you're making sure that you're going to get paid for the privilege of going through that, and my suggestion would be, and I suggest this to all of my colleagues in the UK as well, I talk very frankly and openly about money, about how much I get paid in my day-to-day job, and I ask my colleagues or I ask my peers what they get paid to. And I know sometimes people don't enjoy doing that, but I think the only way to really know what price points are around in the industry is to have conversations about it, to know whether you're getting paid enough, whether you're charging enough, whether because someone could be charging a client twice as much and delivering half the amount. So and I could be rare in this opinion, but I talk very frankly and openly about money.
Yeah. So for me, I would say that when you meet a client, as much as they're interviewing you, you should also be interviewing them.
Yes.
I feel like there are red flags. There are some red flags. And when you see them, you might just, I've walked out of a first meeting saying to myself, I'm not going to take this. And I tell them respectfully, I'm sorry, I can't do it for whatever reason. Because some of them are just, so I don't know if this happens in the UK, but here, sometimes you have some clients who first meeting, they tell you, come at 6 o'clock. They keep you waiting for hours. And after 30 minutes, I just leave because I'm thinking if you cannot respect my time, it's a different matter if you come out and you say, Funmi, I'm so sorry I'm running late. Please give me 3 hours more. I will wait. But you don't just leave me wait. It means you have no respect for my time. For me, that's a red flag. And so many other things. So if you're not comfortable from the get-go, there's sometimes when they're paying you a lot of money, but it's just not worth it. And it ends in a disaster. So that's it. As for pricing, I also think that it's a project by project basis.
Yes.
The more questions you ask your clients, the more you'd understand what needs to be done.
Yeah. Definitely agree with that.
Yeah, because it can't be just a blanket, you need to really, really understand what they want. So you know how to, because again, you may need to bring in freelancers, you may need to bring in other people to join your team, and you want to be sure that you're properly priced for that. So that's what I'll say. I hope we were able to answer your question, Damilola. I think we have a couple more questions. What are the things to look out for when choosing a service provider?
A service provider. Well, I would answer that with two perspectives. So one with a sustainability perspective, and one from a kind of just a corporate event planner perspective. From a corporate event planner perspective, I normally look for suppliers that are friendly to deal with for a start. if I'm met
That's
with,
important.
it's so important, because your
Attitude is so important.
wow. I'm
Tell
honestly,
me about it. Yeah.
yeah, obviously.
I have some horror stories.
My goodness. And it, yes, this is work, but we spend so much of our time working. You know, I don't want to spend all of this time working, like constantly battling with someone, or dealing with someone that isn't very nice. You know, I've managed to
work is already tough as it is.
It's already tough because of the volume of work that you're dealing with, and, you know, all the things that come up and change and, you know, evolve along the way. You having trusted suppliers that you know have your back is so important. Obviously, you know, them knowing that they can do the work that you need them to do, so reliable and robust in providing that service. You know, cost effective. You know, that's important too. But, you know, I would probably trade that off for the other two. And also, depending on what they provide, innovation. So them
very important.
So important. Them keeping their finger on the pulse, so they know, you know, what new tech is out there. You know, is there fun entertainment, new entertainment in the market that we can bring in? You know, what cool materials can we use? You know, what's going on, like, trend wise? You know, what
absolutely
colors, what patterns, what style is trending? Knowing innovation and what's going on trend wise is important too. And then from a sustainability perspective, you know, them having a sustainability policy, or them, you know, thinking about it as an element of what they offer, for me is an absolute mandatory now. And that might be different for you in Nigeria, but for me, in when I do anything in Europe, in the UK, in the US, it would be a mandatory for me.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, to add to what you said, it's also the ability to be able to interpret the brief, right? And I also think that as event planners, I've always said this to my students and anyone who cares to listen. How do you brief your service providers? You know, you have to share the vision with them. You can't just tell them, you know what, a client tells you, I want to do an event, I want to do a Bollywood themed event, for example, right? You have to express that in your brief, so your caterer or whoever you're talking to can take that to the next level. If all you tell them is, oh, you know what, just do food for 200 people, they'll give you the old boring menu. So you need to get them excited. You know, I love it when I send a brief and the service provider calls back and says, please give me some time, let me do some research. I'm like, yes, I got them there. So it's also very important how that happens. Yes, I also want somebody who's on top of trends. Because the truth is, you need a service provider who will make you look good. They're part of your creative team. So you don't need somebody who is just going to do what they've done to everybody or done for everybody. You need somebody who will get everyone excited. So that's what I feel you should look out for in a service provider.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, they're an extended version of your team.
They're an extension of your team. Yep. All right. I hope so far we're able to answer the questions well. Please let us know how we're doing in the comment section. Let's know how we're doing. I think I have a few more. It says, how do you stand out in the event industry in a saturated market? What are the qualities that make an event planner stand out in a saturated market?
That's a great question, and I actually think we can combine it with what's your advice to someone who's relatively new in the events industry, which is one of the questions we've got in the chat. So standing out, someone that's new. My suggestion here is, firstly, network. So whether that is, you know, going to events like this, meeting others, meeting peers, making friends, chatting to others and learning about what they do in the events industry, doing it through LinkedIn. You know, LinkedIn is so important for what we do. Anytime I look for freelancers, anytime I look for suppliers, any recommendations, any advice, anything.
You need to say that louder, Chrissie, because I tell my students all the time. In fact, the last class we had, I actually had everyone bring up their LinkedIn page, and some of them were so embarrassing. Like, you have to be on LinkedIn. What are you doing? Especially if you're working in the corporate event space.
Yeah.
And it's not just, and then I had to go through the pictures. What kind of pictures do you have on there? And then your bio, what are you saying about what you do? You know, they really need to do some more work there.
Yeah. LinkedIn all the way. My day generally, I structure it so when I wake up in the mornings, I'll make myself a cup of coffee and I spend my first half an hour of the day on LinkedIn, and that's my time where I'm sort of waking up because my caffeine's kicking in. It's also time for me to just read, so I just read what's going on in my feed, you know, any news in the industry, any cool announcements from any businesses that I follow, any nice events I want to go to that day or that week. I'd add people that I think might be interesting. Also, what I did over the pandemic was I just messaged people that I thought were interesting. And I was like,
I like that.
You know what? Would you like to have a chat? Because I'd really like to just know you. You know, there's no ulterior motive here. I just think you're interesting and I'd like to chat to you. And I ended up making like 5 really good friends out of that. You know, one that works
amazing.
for Press, one that works for Amex, one that works for Amazon. You know, all these people that were just like, oh, I've not really ever had that before. No one's ever. If I get a message, it's usually someone trying to sell me something. But I was just like, can we be friends? So my recommendation, absolutely network, and also for all of you newbies, new people in the event industry, my recommendation is work on any opportunity that comes your way, whether that is, you know, you might be doing something that you might not want to do. Try it out. Try everything.
You may not even get paid for it, but it's about the experience at this time. I tell them that.
It's the experience, and also about learning what you like and what you don't like. And you don't know either of those things until you've tried it.
True.
So you might end up, you know, going and working for a caterer for a few shifts and being like, I don't know if I'm going to like this, and then loving it. I mean, like, oh, I really liked the buzz of it. I liked working with all this food and all the people I got to chat to. And, you know, it. Or you might go and do a bit of freelancing in a creative department for an agency and be like, this is my calling. I really like it. Where I, you know, my heart sing. That would be my 2 bits of advice for newbies.
Yeah. I liked what you talked about when you talked about, you know, making friends and, you know, meeting people. And I tell my team, I tell my alumni all the time, there's that tendency because, you know, in the events industry, it's tough. It's a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
So when you're not working, you don't want to see anybody. You're done with people. You're like, I don't want to see anybody. I just want to sleep. I want to stay at home. But you do need to step out. And we have a little WhatsApp group, you know, for the academy. And once in a while, I force everyone out. I'm like, you guys have to say something. And then, but it also helps because you have different people from different, experience in the WhatsApp group. And people are there saying, hey, do you know a good caterer? Or do you have an event space? And then somebody says, hey, I can help. And sometimes I love it when they work together and they're collaborating. You know, and that's one of the reasons why we have the academy. So people, because it's really tough because when I started, I didn't necessarily have anybody I could talk to or anybody who could help me or anything, but they have that. So it's very important to go outside your comfort zone, have drinks once in a while, go for coffee, you know, meet people, update your LinkedIn page and, you know, go into people's DMs and say hello once in a while. I
mean, the worst that can happen is those people don't reply. Or they say, I'm really sorry, I don't have the time. And it's like, okay, no worries. If you ever find the time, then just drop me a message.
Somebody said something a long time ago to me. Said, when you don't ask, when you don't ask, the probability of a no is 100%.
Yeah.
But when you ask, it becomes 50%, right?
Yeah.
Like, because they could say yes, they could say no. So why not increase your chances?
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
So that's what I'll say.
Yeah.
What I think we're almost done with the questions. Oh, okay. What ideas do you have for someone looking to break into the events industry in the UK?
Oh, in the UK.
I think some people are trying to leave the country.
And you want to come here? It's cold, and
maybe you should let them know.
It's very cold here, and
Yeah.
the country's not in a great way at the moment. Post Brexit, and we've got strikes going on every 5 minutes. But if you're still interested, I say network. There are lots of industry events that take place here. There's one called International Confex, which is a big...
I've been to that some years ago.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
It's a good one. And post pandemic, it's really picking up pace. More and more people are going. So definitely come over for that if you're looking to break into the industry now. And network, connect with people on LinkedIn, or I do think commenting on anyone's posts on LinkedIn of people that you find interesting, getting yourself a really good CV together, and maybe applying for remote UK jobs, getting yourself in with a UK business. And then if it's something you do want to move over here, I'm not really sure why you would want to move here, but if you did want to move here, then getting your foot in the door with UK businesses is a great way of doing that. And a lot of people at the moment are offering remote roles, so keep an eye out for things like that. And the name of the event that I just mentioned was Confex. I'll send the link to the
CONFEX, Confex.
And actually, I'm speaking at Confex this year.
Nice. When is it this year?
It's the 1st.
I think it's usually in March.
Yes, 1st and 2nd of March. Right. Yeah. Well, you can find me in the Sustainability Pavilion. I'll be speaking about how to influence your clients to think about sustainability harder. I
like that. That is nice. That is really nice. So if anybody is going to be at Confex, just go say hi to Chrissie.
Yes.
And tell her you heard her from the webinar. Events Architects Academy webinar. Yeah. Fantastic. I think we have one says, how do I use social media to give me an advantage in the events industry? And then there's a last one, which I think we should take. How do you ensure you meet the client's objectives when planning an event? I think we already kind of answered that already.
That one, yeah. I mean, objectives are important.
Just ask them. Be direct.
Yeah.
Ask the right questions.
Yeah, that should be your first question. What do you want to achieve?
Yes.
And then how much money have you got? And you quickly tell whether they're actually going to be able to.
Don't you just hate it when clients never give you a budget at the beginning? So they tell you, I don't really have a budget. I don't know and then when you bring the budget, they're like, it's too much. So you had a budget.
Yeah. I for a very long time, I wouldn't respond if I didn't have a figure, even if it was a rough figure. Because if someone goes, I want to hold a party for 1,000 people and I want Daft Punk to play and piano to burst out of the window, how much money have you got? £5,000.
You're like,
you can tell them straight away.
It's not going to work.
No.
So
maybe
we'll play you the video on YouTube. Maybe YouTube.
But social media, I would say LinkedIn is the only social media that really matters. I mean, I think sometimes for more creative businesses like event architects, you know, having an Instagram can help as well for more visuals. But I think most event planners, suppliers, and clients are on LinkedIn, and they are actively on there. I don't know any corporate or agency event planners that are not on LinkedIn. I think that isn't. I thought it was weird.
Yeah, I think if you want to do serious business, if you're not on LinkedIn, then you have not even started. I don't take you seriously if you're not on, even if I'm trying to hire people. As soon as I get their CV, I check them out on LinkedIn. If they're not on LinkedIn, and it's not even okay, I look at them on LinkedIn. I look at their picture on LinkedIn. How was it taken? What does it look like? How is that back? So if you're careless on LinkedIn, I'm like, you're not. I don't want you working for me. Yeah. You know what I mean. So make an effort. Yeah, it's a big deal. Okay.
Yeah. It's a big deal. Damilola said, would you say the same for Nigerian society when it comes to LinkedIn? And is that, I'm not sure if that question is aimed at the budget conversation we were having, or whether it's aimed at the LinkedIn conversation we were having. But actually, Kunmi's put, there's a trick to budgeting. Ask them if they have a plan to have to spend a certain amount. Give them a really high figure. They'll scream and say they don't plan to spend that
That's
much.
a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one. Yes, that's a very good one. Yes.
And so Damilola said, so her comment about Nigerian society was about the LinkedIn conversation.
Right.
So, I mean, I would say it's still important for anyone to have a LinkedIn if in this industry, and especially, you know, I would say most suppliers and most clients, regardless of where they are in the world, would have a LinkedIn, and it's the best place to network. What do you think, Funmi? Would you agree?
Yeah. So I understand Damilola's question. Yeah. Yes, a lot more suppliers in Nigeria or event planners are more on Instagram, but I still think that LinkedIn is important because your corporate managers, what do they call them? Corporate comms managers, your CEOs, they're on LinkedIn, especially if you're in the corporate event space. They are all there. So yes, you can post pictures on Instagram, but still have your presence on LinkedIn. It's very, very important. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've just shared my LinkedIn profile with the Events Architect team, so they'll put that into the chat. So anyone,
great guys, go in there and say hello, and connect with Chrissie. And say hello. Yeah, she's very friendly.
I definitely am. And if any questions I can answer, if there's any pieces of advice that I can help any of you with, then just get in touch. I like making friends.
Yep. Oh, fantastic. I think we have exhausted all the questions right now. Thank you so much, Chrissie, for this. This is amazing. I'm so happy I can do this with you. And I think that we will definitely have you back. If you want us to bring Chrissie back, just go into the comment section and show her love. Yeah? So she'll know that we are, and hopefully we will bring you to Nigeria physically very soon.
I love that. I've never been to Nigeria. I've always wanted to go.
There are no questions. Okay, so I hear we have like 2 minutes to go. So let's see if we can quickly ask another question.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any questions here. Yeah? No, I don't have any questions. I don't have any more questions, but we're out of time anyway. So I think everybody else who has a question will just have to send us a DM or something. Yeah. And then we'll be able to answer it. Thank you so much, Chrissie. Thank you so much for everyone who has joined in. See you again soon. I hope we're able to help in our little way to give you some advice that will get you started, get you better, and see you, I guess, in the industry or on LinkedIn. Yeah. All right. Also, before I go, if you're interested in our next academy training, please follow Events Architects Academy, and you will see all the dates for our next training. It's going to be amazing, as always. You can ask the alumni; they will tell you. All right. So thank you so much, everyone, and see you soon. Bye.
Thanks so
Bye,
much.
Chrissie.
Bye.
Chat
Thanks
with
for
you
having
later.
me.
Yeah,
Bye.
bye. Bye.